Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to this YouTube channel. It's your guy Igor here. Today's video is dedicated to Canadian regrets and challenges that immigrants, especially new immigrants, face in Canada. I'm sure all of you, including myself, we have friends who've been living and working in this country for decades, 20, 30 years, but they shop only in their community store. So I mean, for example, if you come from Romania or Eastern Europe, you go to that Eastern European deli store and people just shop there. They buy only those products from back home. They talk only to those people from their back home countries, and every day of their life they regret ever moving to Canada and they dream of coming back. And if you ask them why haven't they yet gone back to their home country, it's either the job or the spouse or the family situation that doesn't allow them to do that. So I decided to make a video dedicated to this topic, just so that to prepare you if you're doing the research, so that you don't end up like those people in pretty miserable situation where you move to Canada and you are regretting your choice, and it's a really depressing and a bad situation to be in at first place, because you don't really enjoy the country that you moved. And there are certain things that cause it, there are certain things that are influencing those people in that manner, and I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this channel, you might be in the same kind of situation. And it all happens when you just come to this country with all the hopes and all the things. As a new immigrant, you're like, you know what, it's going to be amazing, life is going to be great here. And then you're like, you know, I wish I was back home, I don't want to live in this country is not as great. So the first reason for that, guys, is, well, not doing enough research. And I'm sure you're already doing it right now. So you're watching this channel, doing your online research, but it shouldn't end on only saying, hey, look, I watched Igor's video, this country is pretty amazing, I love Canada, and I'm moving here. So what you need to know is the culture. Canadian culture is different from back home, from wherever you are in the world. It can be different. You know, all the situations happening here, LGBTQ, all the genders, all the pronouns, you reserve, whatever there is going on in school, like, it can be difficult. The food is different, lots of ultra processed foods, lots of people eating junk, sugar addicts, and myself. I just lost a lot of weight. I know a lot of you are wanting me to make a video about it, how I lost 80 pounds in 6 months. I can make a video on that. I'll cover it in a topic. I promise you guys, we'll be talking about it. The thing is, it's like many videos, but it's all about Canadian style of living that made me gain even more weight. So yeah, it is pretty easy to gain weight here with all the frozen stuff that you eat. But anyways, so culture, food, province, city, you can end up in Saskatchewan. It's pretty damn flat and cold there. You can end up in Regina, the crime rates are pretty high there. Or you can end up in Vancouver or Toronto, where you'll probably never be able to afford any kind of real estate, and the rents are huge. So all this research, it matters, because you come to a new country to live a Canadian dream, and then you're slammed by reality where you're not making as much, you are not doing as great, and the food is not as tasty, and the people are different. So it can cause a lot of problem. A lot of people do regret moving to Canada because of that, and I don't want you to feel like that. That's why I'm making a video for you, to prepare you how I overcame that. It did visit my mind at least a couple of times. It did over the years. I've been in Canada for 10 years now, and I do not regret moving here. So here's what I did, what you can do, and here's my mistakes. You should definitely learn from it and avoid, so you don't end up in the situations where you can be even more successful than me in this country. So first of all is rent and living in Canada is really expensive. So the biggest challenge is, you arrive to Canada and you're like, yeah, I'm going to rent a place. So let's say you're in Ontario, and in Ontario legislation protects the tenants over the landlords. So if you are a tenant, you have more rights than the homeowner that actually owns the property. So yeah, they are really careful in who is going to be the tenant. You'll be faced by a situation where they will say, yeah, give us 1 year of rent or half a year of rent, because we don't know you. And the challenge is, you don't have credit history in this country, you don't have a job to show your employment, and you don't have enough money probably. Maybe you do, but a lot of people don't, like I didn't. So yeah, you better have enough money and credit history and a job to be able to afford, because otherwise you're going to be homeless, strangled in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, yeah, you know what can I do? Like, I just came here, I need to settle somewhere, I have kids, I have wife and family, and you know, I want to stay in this country. So yeah, you're homeless all of a sudden, and you have the money but they won't let you rent. So do the research, try to find housing even before you arrive, otherwise you'll be jumping from Airbnb to Airbnb and paying so much of money. By the way guys, I do Airbnb as well in my basement for an extra income. It's great, and a lot of people just like yourself, but they're coming to Calgary. It's a little bit easier. Legislation is a little bit less on the side of the tenants than on the landlords, so a little bit better for the landlords, and that's why the tenants feel easier to rent something, but still the same problem. Now, jobs. This is the biggest challenge. So you're back home, you might be a senior manager, you can be doing whatever, you could be a doctor and things like that. So you're coming to Canada, and next thing you know, you get hit by the reality. Your experience doesn't matter, your education doesn't matter, your license and certifications are not valid in Canada, and nobody really cares about your experience. And a lot of people who come to Canada, they search for jobs for 3, 6 months, a year, sitting jobless, eating up their savings because they won't get the job that they want, because they didn't do the research, and they are like, yeah. So what are the options? Warehouse, that's what I did. I went to the warehouse with my master's degree and my experience in sales and things like that back home, in management as well. Well, yeah, I went to a warehouse, a general labor job there. What is the better option than a warehouse if you don't want to do that? Does it hurt your dignity? Well, I definitely lost some confidence while doing that job, but in Canada, there is a different cultural mindset. It's not shameful to do any kind of job. You'll see a lot of people who are born and raised in this country with lots of education work in a gas station, working at a coffee shop. So no, it's not bad for you to do any kind of job. It doesn't matter what you do, and there is nothing shameful in it. But a lot of immigrants, like from where I come from, would be ashamed to do that kind of job. Like, oh, can you tell your parents that, like relatives, that you moved with your family to this country, you were a senior manager, and all of a sudden you are working in a warehouse? Like, what the hell? How are you going to explain it to your relatives that you just went through 5 years of immigration, you just took all the family's savings, you put it into Canada, and now you are like general labor, cleaner, maintenance? Like, it's shameful. It hurts your dignity, but it's not. It's not shameful because everyone does it. It's fine. And so a lot of people are not prepared mentally to take a step back like this. Just you go back and back. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make the rent happen, to get paid in this country. So yes, it is. It can hurt your dignity and things like that, but you should not worry about it. Here's the tip that I would do if I was to start over. If I was again to move to Canada, I wouldn't spare $500, and I would have went and I would have got a forklift license. I drove a forklift in Canada. Yeah, I drove a forklift, but my employer never wanted to pay for my license. Didn't want me to get one even in Canada. How about that? It's crazy. Like, yeah, but if I was to go back before I got that job, before my employer said, yeah, you have to drive that forklift to get the things done, I'm like, do I have a license? He's like, no, I'm not going to be paying for it, and you don't need it. I was like, okay. So I drove a forklift without, for safety purposes, you should have a forklift license, and I'm sure I would have got paid more. So I would have got a forklift license for myself. That's what I would have changed before applying for a job in the warehouse. Next thing you know, my income would be not $10.25 when I started, because it was the minimum wage at that time. I would have been at 16, 17. Right now, you'll be over $20 an hour if you just know how to drive a forklift. It takes 3 days. So I actually went for the course for the forklift later on myself. It takes 3 days to get your forklift license. So you can actually get it. It's pretty simple. So get your forklift license, get it done, and in 3 days spend $500. Your income is going to go by like $5-7 per hour. So that would be my first tip, and it's very easy to get those jobs. And don't worry about other jobs. You first get that, start paying rent, start paying, you are already starting to build credit. So few things when you arrive to Canada is find any kind of job that pays at least something while you can cover, so you don't eat up your savings. Second one is get forklift license or some kind of license and certification. Another part about it is, guys, it's going to help you find a house or things like that, while you're going to get the licensing and certifications to practice your occupation in Canada. Like if you want to be an engineer, there are certain exams here. If you are an IT person, like for example, if you go into trades, construction, there are trade certificates, and I worked in construction. Initially my job, I didn't go for trade certificates. So a lot of things here, including real estate. I'm a realtor, for example, with the experience in Calgary, Alberta. So So I needed to get a license. You cannot just go and sell real estate. You need to be licensed in real estate before you can do that. You need to be a licensed lawyer before being admitted into the bar. You need to be a licensed doctor, the dietitian, and things like that. Lots of licensing here and requirements, so it's going to take some time. So don't think about it in a bad way. You'll make it. I did. You will make it. It's stressful, but it's possible. It's time-consuming and depressing, but guys, I promise you, if you do this step sooner at your journey and don't wait for a decade for this to happen, you are going to feel so much better and so much more successful in this country. Next part about this English accents. Oh my God, yeah. You know, I was studying English in Ukraine. Honestly, whatever I studied was garbage because, you know, the accents, you come to Canada, you know, like, what are they talking about, these Canadians? And then you finally get used to this Canadian accent, and then you are like, okay, British guy comes out, and you're like, okay, that's something I'm used to because that's what I learned back home, you know, this kind of IELTS and things like that. But fine. An Australian guy shows up, and a Scottish guy shows up. You're like, I have no idea what they're talking about because the accents are so complicated. So language is going to be a huge barrier initially, so be prepared for it. And about accents, everyone has accents. Indian guys have accents, Punjabi guys have accents, Chinese guys have accents. I have an accent, so probably you would be if English is not your first language. But the most important part is don't try to get rid of it. Forget about it. Nobody ever laughed at my accent. Well, except two people who said, oh, this Russian guy, and I had to give them some difficult times because I'm only quarter Russian. I'm actually Ukrainian. But anyways, so yes, what I'm trying to say is accents are going to be quite difficult, and it's going to be strainful, and it's going to be difficult initially to understand people, getting jobs and figuring things out. But do not ever blame yourself for having an accent in this country. It's all right. Everyone does have. Canadians have their own accent. Americans have their own accent. Australians, Britishers, Scottish, everyone. French, sometimes even funny to me, but it's considered to be sexy for the locals for some reason. Russian, you sound like a tough. Indian guy, you sound super polite. Chinese guys, I don't even know how to describe it. Doesn't matter. Stick with your accent and, you know, respect yourself and love yourself in terms of the accent. Next part about it is real estate prices. So if you didn't do your research and you went to Toronto, you're like, yeah, I came to this country, I want to buy a house. Okay, maybe you have $1 million, you can go ahead and do that. But a lot of times people come here, they're like, I want to live Canadian dream, I want to own a house, and I cannot afford one. So they moved to the wrong place. Another person moved to Saskatchewan, got a really cheap property there. Or in Calgary, you still can buy something. But you moved to the wrong province and you need $1.5 million to buy something. You're in Vancouver or you are in Toronto. So you're like stuck. Not only you cannot rent place, you can buy something, and then even years down the road, I just made a video about why most Canadians never going to afford a house, and you could see that you need to make over $207,000 of income, which is a lot of people probably never going to make. Well, it may be in the future they'll make, but by that time you would need probably yeah, $300,000 or $400,000 income to afford something. So it's just going to be an adjustment to inflation, to be honest with you. So yeah, in terms of buying a house, if you go to the wrong place, you better get a most paying job, and both of the people in your family should be working, because it could be an unreachable and unattainable goal. But with that being said, I have a friend, I studied with him in Centennial College. He's right now purchased a property in Calgary, but he had 2 homes in Ontario, came with nothing as an international student, managed to start a company, made a lot of money, started another company, bought 2 houses in Toronto, and now he purchased a home in Calgary. And now, yeah, all I'm saying is it is possible, it is really possible, even if you have nothing. So don't be discouraged on that part. But also, if you want things, if you want to get the highest difficulty of this game, of a simulation, like Elon Musk is saying, we are living in a simulation. So, and if you are decided to choose the highest difficulty of simulation, you go to, of this game of Canada immigration, you go to Vancouver or Toronto. If you want like a medium level of difficulty, you go to, and enjoy more, you go to Calgary, let's say. And if you're just reckless and you just like want easy mode and you don't care about your life, you go to one of those provinces where it's cold, it's cheap, you still make money, and nobody wants to live there. Anyways, so then another regret that people have is paperwork. Oh my God, with the entire situation in Ukraine right now, guys, I love Ukraine. I love Ukraine and Ukrainian people, but I love that country. Okay, so it tells you a little bit about my love towards that country. So I love that country for a reason. And the reason I felt nostalgic about it, just like, some immigrants, the longer you stay out of your country, the more, homesick you feel. So yeah, I felt homesick until I had to extend my mom's passport when she came to Canada. Then when I found out that people from Ukraine who fled from Ukraine to Canada booked all the appointments to Ukrainian embassy, and they sold their time slots on Facebook. So that if you want to get there sooner, you pay somebody $500 and you get ahead of the line, or you have to wait for 3 months. So then I realized, oh yeah, that's exactly why I left. The corruption, the people taking advantage of themselves, of their own people, even during the situation that is happening there right now. Like, how cruel, how bad do you have to be treating your own people for your own gain and benefit? Like, this is why I left. That it reminded me of that, and my homesickness just went flying out of the window. I was like, I'm happy to be in Canada. I'm happy how Canadians are helping people, how they're treating refugees, how they're helping people get jobs. I find people who don't speak a word in English working over there in YMCA. I find people working in other places, in childcare, Ukrainian refugees who came barely, and they're learning, they're working, they are doing it, and the people here are supporting them. This is how amazing this country is. And yeah, if you do everything right, guys, and you find a place to stay, you find the right job, you get all the licenses and certifications, you're going to be blessed and happy in this country and very successful. And I want to say, guys, I made it, so you will do as well. And once again, if you're moving to Calgary, I'm a realtor, this is XP Realty, and my wife is a mortgage broker. So if you need a mortgage, feel free to contact her. The link is in the description of this video. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.